Welcome back, everyone, to our exclusive Nobody Studios Culture Livestream show, where we bring you stories of remarkable nobodies who are making waves at our global venture studio. And so today, I have the privilege of welcoming a real inspiration and someone. When I was learning about his journey as I was preparing for this live stream, I couldn't believe it. So I wanted to introduce our guest, Aaron Ellis, who really is no stranger to success. But really, and I'll tell you about some of his accolades as we go on with the live stream. But what really sets him apart is how he really is just about, made a commitment to empower others and foster a sense of community in literally everything he does. And so his mission is to empower others to live passionately and by their own terms. So welcome to the show, Aaron.
Thank you, Sejal, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my God, no, I'm excited to be having this conversation because, like I said, I was doing some research on you yesterday and learning about you, and I already knew because we've joined a couple of virtual events and we've had some conversations. I already knew you were a legendary musician, right? I knew that already. We've talked about that, but I had no idea the extent of your achievements. So I'm just going to read these off, right? With 1 diamond and an astounding 18 gold and platinum records to your name, along with 11 top 10 songs and a multitude of awards. Like just reading that list alone will take us the next half an hour. And so your impact that you've made in the world of music is really, really inspiring. So I'm curious, do you still find time to play music?
I do still find time to play music. It's a part of me. It's always been a part of me. So if I don't find time to play music, I find that I get sick. Honestly, to be truthful with you, it's something that grounds me and balances me. It's a key part of who I am. So I completely still find time. I do have another album in the can, as it said, ready to be released. Potentially this year. I haven't really gotten the intuitive hit and when to release it yet, but it's coming.
Oh my God, that's incredible. Yeah. And I was reading about all the stuff you were doing musically, it's like, I've always said myself that I don't have a musical bone in my body because I never was given an opportunity, right? Like I never got a chance to take those. And so literally last year, I had a friend he gave me one of his guitars because he asked me, he's like, what, if you were to play any instrument, what would it be? And I said, the guitar. And so he's like, I've got a bunch of them. So I'm just going to give you one. And so what I've been doing is I've never had lessons. I just put on some music. I put on my headset and I just play whatever I feel, whatever just comes out. And I don't know how to play it. I don't even know if I'm holding it right. I don't know anything. But it's been like meditation. Like it literally becomes like, and I told my son, when I'm ready, I'm going to have you actually listen to it because who knows if it's good or bad, but it doesn't really matter. I enjoy doing it, and it just gives me that time to sort of just, I don't know, tap into something I really haven't done before. Right. So it's been fun to play around. Yeah. And so the other thing that really jumped out at me too is you've worked and helped lots of teams and individuals, throughout your career, right? And you've gone through a lot of different I feel like when I was looking at what you were doing, there's a lot of passion, purpose, and impact, that just jumped out at me into no matter what you were doing, that was kind of jumping out at me. And then I read about your guiding principle, right? And I just want to read this for everybody. It said, success is a flow. Achievements flow from this. And so I would love to hear from you a little bit more about how this philosophy has shaped your approach to life and work.
Sure. So everything I do you could say, has been a flow state. And even from a young age, I lived and my vantage point was a flow state. My being was a flow state. And I really had to learn how to articulate that and how to really help other people understand what I already understood. So it's something that just came naturally to me. And success is a flow. What I mean by that, it's a flow that we step into. People think it's something that we strive for, something that we achieve, but ultimately every single step we take is success. And a lot of people think success is only that final destination, but every step you took to get to that destination is part of that success. You can't negate any of them. You can't discount any of those steps. And so many people, and part of it's our culture, to believe that final destination is the what you're striving for, right? But if you do that, and you miss the flow. And in my experience personally, and also people that I've come to meet, anybody who's achieved at a very high level, they're usually asked, like, what did it feel like when you finally achieved that? And honestly, they're usually like, what was great. However, who I became and what I learned on the journey is what was most important to me, right? And
Mhm.
I guess one of the biggest things I like to share around that success flow and the achievements, however they arise, are basically a result of that is most people are governed by motivation. And they're governed by something external to themselves that drives them to take action. So what it looks like is it's typically motivation is finite, and it's typically an external, something external, like I said, is motivating them to take action. It's usually around something that they don't like. So they're motivated to do something to get to what they do like, and they'll grab a hold of something and they'll carry that something through to completion. Where the difference in what I'm talking about success being a flow, it comes from inspiration from within. And inspiration, when we talk about motivation, inspiration is when something grabs a hold of you and carries you through to completion. So that's, I would say, the biggest difference is stepping into that flow and understanding that you are as much of a part as the completion that needs to happen as the actual goal that you're trying to achieve that you've been deeming as that will be what success looks like.
Yeah. No, and I know this philosophy, success of the flow. I'm just gonna, it really resonates with me, and I know it resonates with Nobody Studios, right? And Mark and I have talked about that philosophy on when we do the making of a Nobody on Fridays, right? And really, it is, and this is what I said to him when we were talking about it, is that if we look at just our journey that we've gone through as a studio, success is something it's like you said, it's not about reaching the destination. It's about enjoying the journey along the way. And I'm always reminding him to do that, right? Because I'm like, you see all these moving pieces. I'm like, make sure you enjoy this journey that's unfolding along the way. And we've had incredible people, right? If it wasn't for the people that have supported us, that have gotten us here, none of that would have happened, right? And so the other thing I wanted to highlight for people, is that I think one of the things that jumped out at me when I was reading some of your posts that you put on LinkedIn, is this idea of uplifting others. And you do that so well, on your posts. I know that you do that with the people that I've introduced you to have always come back to me and said, wow, he's just got this positive light or energy after they've talked to you about it, and then when I read what you put down about your superpower, and so Aaron's self-proclaimed superpower, right, is bringing clarity and harmony where there is chaos. So tell me a little bit about what led you to discovering that superpower, because that's so powerful.
Well,
To have that ability.
this goes back to what I said. Like I've always seen the connection in everything in life, right? So I've always come from a perspective of everything is connected and everything is part of a flow. With that, you could say, if we were to go a little deeper in this, I live in a place of non-duality. So I don't see good, bad, right, or wrong. Now I can see it, but from my vantage point, I see the entire spectrum of everything that's going on, right? So when people see chaos, I don't see chaos. I just see a piece of the puzzle. They might be honed in and focused on what they feel is chaotic, which is usually due to a conditioning, something that they've learned. It's a learned response, right? In their neural pathways and their patterns and their programs, their subconscious says, this is chaotic. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. I want to move away from it. I close rather than open. Where I approach life always open, right? So I'm not actually sorting through good, bad, right, or wrong and trying to move away from bad and wrong to get to good and right. I see it all as all one and the same. And another way somebody's put that, I was interviewed recently, like, you have no resistance in your life. And I'm like, well, that's because I meet resistance with zero resistance. And I'm not resisting it. I'm literally just seeing it. So when you think, let's take this towards fear and doubt, because that's one thing that drives people away and people think is chaotic. It's chaos. I don't like the way it feels. What if you pictured fear rather than something that's repelling you, but rather like a magnet that's drawing you to and through it? And you always hear like your freedom is on the other side of your fear. Well, if that's true, then maybe fear is a magnet pulling you to and through it. Maybe it's a signpost not saying run away. Maybe it's a signpost saying
run towards it.
Get some momentum and run through it.
Yeah.
And so back to just to sum up what I'm saying, I see the whole picture. So if somebody has one vantage point, right, and I'll use my hands here, they believe what they believe is true and right. And from their vantage point, I see that. I can see another vantage point here, and I love leading people to a broader vantage point where we can zoom them out so they can see. And the way this relates in the whole hindsight is 2020, which I believe that present sight can be 2020. Yet most people, almost everybody, I say most people because I haven't talked to everybody, but everybody I have talked to, as I go through this, I reference times in their life where they felt something was horrible and chaotic and wrong and bad, but now they look back and like, you know what, I'm glad that happened. I needed to, and I'm thankful for it, right? So most people get to where I'm talking about at a certain point, but they have a pattern and a program that makes them have to reject it and see it as chaos before they see it as cooperative, before they see it as part of the flow and part of the perfection.
Yeah, I know. And it takes a lot of unlearning, right? That preconditioning. But I'm with you. I think your ability and people, I've always admired that about people who can find calm and clarity in these chaotic situations. Like I've always admired that. And then just also on top of that, though, doing what you're doing is that now you're helping others, right? You're helping others navigate through these turbulent times, because no matter how good we are at it, we always need support, right? And that's really the crux of this conversation. That really, when I was like, what should we talk about? Was this ability to sort of build community, right, and uplift others, and that's something that I really want to make sure we do right with our culture at Nobody Studios and all of the new codes, right? And so that isn't a topic that I've talked to anybody about, to this level of depth that I would love to go into it with you, because your commitment to doing that, to uplift others and empower others, and what you've done and your mission and these principles that you live by and philosophies really resonate with us at the studio, right? So let's talk a little bit about, one of the reasons why I love doing this show, Aaron, is because I get to ask people what drew them to our journey. And I really love asking that question, right? And so tell us a little bit about what initially drew you to Nobody Studios, and how are you going to be helping us like elevate, our community? And you're already starting to do a bunch, because I see you making waves already. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So what originally brought me in is it's everything in my life has been based on relationships. So one of my dear friends, he interviewed in Nobody Studios. He was building a company underneath the umbrella of Nobody Studios. And that was a gentleman by the name of Mike Mamola, good friend of mine. We'd done business before. He's like a brother from another mother. And I'm just like literally one of my top people in the world, right? People that I just love and trust and just amazing, right? And so he introduced me initially. And I just started to look into it. And I really love the whole nobody aspect and the no egos, and in a world that everybody needs to be somebody, right? I really love that. And I started just to look, from an energetic level of just looking at the pictures of the people and who they were. I'm like, wow, I really like these people. Now, the other piece of the puzzle, though, that I think is really relevant here is in January of 2000, we're in 24, so 2023, I don't set goals. I don't have New Year's resolutions, but usually around that time of year, primarily because it's winter leading into spring and rebirth and whatnot, I'll get kind of a download of what's going to happen in my year. And one of those downloads was that I was going to basically meet a group of people that I was going to lock arms with to basically build companies. I've been building companies already, right? But to build companies that are 100% about empowering others and the world. Right. And all like positive in that sense. And so I had that vision like, wow, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. How's that going to come about? And so then I started to meet some people, and Mike Mamola, he brought me in, and then he had told, when I met Mark McNally, he said, Mike Mamola said that whatever we have to do, we have to get you on board. Like no matter what, you have to get Aaron on board. So we went back and forth and talked. And then there was a few things in that conversation that really struck me that I want to put out there, because they have to do with everything we're talking about. Mark and I really connected on words like irrational, unrealistic, and impractical. And when I hear those words, sign me up. That's my obsessed. If like Aaron, I don't know if this is going to happen. It's impossible, or it's really irrational what we're doing. Like that's not realistic. I'm like, sign me up. That's chaos, right? I know that it's usually just because it's a vantage point. There's a lot of misapprehension, misunderstanding in people who see and use those words, right? So when Mark and I started talking about them in a way that was a positive thing, like we're irrational. We look at things irrationally. I'm like, sweet, that's where I need to be. So that's basically in a nutshell what led me into Nobody.
Oh my God. I love that story. So like, I'm going to share my story with you, right? So
Mhm.
it's very similar. So it's so crazy how vibey our studio is because, so I had done a podcast and the podcast host asked me a question that nobody's ever asked me before. And he's like, Sejal, you're as an attorney and in your career, you always come in after, culture is toxic or something's gone wrong and you clean up the mess. What if you had an opportunity to like create the culture strategies or provide input and be a part of it from the ground up, right? And I was like, whoa, I've never really thought about that. I never have thought about doing that. It was, and he planted the seed. And it was literally 2 weeks after that Mark called me on the phone. And he's like, hey, I've been looking at the stuff you're doing and I'm in my garage. I'm going to be starting a venture studio and culture's got to be a priority and let's talk. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's really 2 weeks. And then he's like, also, by the way, I don't want to build one company. I want to build 100. Sign me up. I'm like, there we go. That's gonna, it's that irrational, like, okay, people are gonna say this is impossible, and I want to be a part of it, and we can, do what I can to help us achieve that goal. So I love hearing that story that you said. So you said something that caught my attention. You said something about you've been building companies. Tell us a little bit about that because I would love to hear from you what your experience is in that. And then the next question I have is what, based on your experience, then what sets Nobody Studios apart as far as specifically focusing on innovation, right?
Yeah.
And how do we then go from there to building the community that you and I both want to do, right, at the studio and beyond?
Yeah, so I can see the whole thread of thoughts here, but keep me in line with those
Yes,
questions.
I'm good at that. I'm good at that.
Yeah, I've been obviously building a band too, and building groups and really managing teams. I can see that I've been doing that since I was a little kid, right?
Mhm.
There's jokes about a band being like 5 bad marriages. That is true. There's truth behind that, right? If you approach it that way, but there's also ways to really unify and really bring people together and value everybody's perspective. And it takes communication, it takes courage, it takes vulnerability, it takes a lot of different things. So when I stepped out of music originally, I actually built a supplement company. And it was sports supplements. I moved into the health and wellness space primarily because one of the bands I was touring with, the guitar player was into working out. He was towing a gym equipment behind the tour bus, and the roadies would put it all at the parking lot. And I started working out in '97. So that's when I started. And I found a refuge in health and fitness. So that led me into that industry, and I started. I had the supplement company, and then I also started consulting gyms and building gyms, and I built a transformation program that's all over the world now in gyms. And I really started to I had a knack for seeing the entire path of something, right? And this really goes into the innovation in Nobody Studios too, which I'll come back to. But I also had another piece of this puzzle too that I'm now seeing in the last maybe 6-7 years of my life that was extremely relevant. How I say things are connected and synchronicity and things. There's a through line through your whole life, right? And a lot of people don't see it. And I believe we see it when we need to see it, right? But a piece of that puzzle is one of my mentors was a guy named Paul Allen, and he was the co-founder of Microsoft. Now, I did not know him as the co-founder of Microsoft. I knew him as a guy who played guitar, who had a big mansion and a yacht, and brought all the Seattle musicians over, and we jammed at his house, right? And went on his yacht with him, and he had a studio. He was a great guitar player, and he created the Music Experience Museum in Seattle. So that's how I knew him, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I started peripherally understanding that stuff, but I was at those parties, like starting at a very young age. I never got into really drinking and alcohol and stuff. So when everybody was kind of going crazy around 10:30, 11, I was sitting in these rooms with these millionaires and billionaires and 100 millionaires, listening to them talk. And I realized I picked up a lot of business acumen. I started to really understand business laws or spiritual laws or physical laws or natural laws. They're all the same laws. They're just phrased differently, right? So I saw that through line. Like I said, I was talking about how when I was younger, I didn't necessarily know how to connect the dots, articulate it in an intellectual way, but now I could. So I started to do that in business, and I would get asked questions, and I was speaking. I spoke at eBay when I was 17 years old with long hair and a leather jacket on. I spoke about culture. It's really interesting, a different way than most people hear culture. I talked about personal responsibility and things that we'll get into, but I went into just learning how to build companies, and that turned into really me loving to work with visionaries or the founder of a company and help them bring their vision and their vision to life, right? And that has to do with removal of a lot of things that are in the way of the vision. And as this plays into Nobody Studios and innovation, I think one of the key things that's extremely important with innovation, and you touched on this, with somebody who's building a company in their garage hires a chief culture officer with no employees, right? Mark understands that to build something, you need to build it right from the start. And I love working in startups, like you said, chaos. Like, people know me as like, Aaron loves problems. I've heard that said, call Aaron, he loves problems. I do. Now, I also love helping people become proactive and be innovative in their thinking, which you mentioned there's a lot of relearning to do, but a lot of times I'll come into a company that if they would have built it from the start, then they wouldn't be having the problems they're having. Now, I don't necessarily have to go through that with them because I know that they were doing the best that they could with what they knew how. They were basically, they were working with what they had, right? Yet I can also bring that up after we've shifted something and after they've realized, oh, wow, if I would have known this, and we can pay it forward saying, look, I can also see some other things that just naturally you're going to hit. As a company, as you scale, as you grow, you're going to hit these benchmarks, whether it's in business, the actual skill sets you're going to need, or from my experience, the mental mindset stuff that's going to hit you when you get to certain levels. It hits everybody, right? Let's be proactive. Let's get you ready for that. Let's get the things in place. Let's learn the lessons, get the skill sets, get the tools, everything in place. So you just breeze right through that. And it doesn't become a problem that you're reactive to. You're proactive. So when it comes to Nobody Studios and innovation, one, I remember Mark telling me that and you telling me that he hired you out of his garage. I'm like, wow, so this is somebody who understands, again, through trial and error, through seeing whether it was mistakes we made, the dummy tax we paid ourselves, or thought like, wow, if we would have done this, the whole coulda, shoulda, woulda, we never should've on ourselves. We realized that we couldn't have done different because we didn't know. We shouldn't have done different because we didn't know, right? We wouldn't have done because we couldn't have done because we shouldn't have. Like, you want to pay those thoughts forward, right? And I can see that I was really inspired seeing that Nobody Studios and Mark primarily saw that, right? And I think when you think about how we have this progressive model, and Mark's favorite word is velocity, right? He says velocity all the time. Achieving velocity has to do with the building blocks of a company. And if you're struggling with velocity, a lot of times you have to go back and look at those building blocks, and your foundation sometimes needs to be real. I've run into companies that we had to completely tear everything literally down to the foundation again, or build a brand new foundation. Right? Because they were on the 7th floor, but the structures in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd through the 6th wasn't going to hold them, right? So seeing that Mark has consistently put that forward, and I've seen that across the board, and I've been involved since like late September now. It's part of the culture. It's part of what we do at Nobody Studios. So I don't know if I got everything in your question.
No, you did, and I want to keep going, right? So, what advice? All right, so I want you to talk to all of the leaders at Nobody Studios, and I consider every person that's part of our journey a leader, right? So so you're talking to everybody that's part of our Nobody Studios community as leaders on what can we do to build solidarity and community within our global venture studio and all of the companies that we're going to be building. Give us some advice on how we should go about doing that.
So first, let me touch on you said, I believe that everybody involved are leaders.
Yes.
I personally believe that every single person in the world is a leader.
Yep.
Now, this goes back to the whole, the destination thinking of one day I'll be a leader, and the separation where we, usually it's a self-issue that we point to somebody else as a leader. Good. Everybody's a leader as far as they've led themselves, right? And when you can realize that I am a leader, I'm just continuing. Leadership is not a destination. It's a constant expansion, right? So for leaders to start understanding that and really realize there's one truth that I've always said, that leadership, there's two actually put out there. One is leadership is always and only leading yourself. And what I mean by that, I'm like, well, no, you got to lead others. I'm like, yes, but remember, they don't do what you say, they do what they see you doing. So if you're saying one thing, if you're not congruent and integrity, what you say and what you think and what you're doing needs to be speaking the same message. And if you're not, that's an internal issue with you. And you need to go within again. So I always say for leaders, the best way you can continue to expand, because again, a leader knows the way, they show the way, they go the way, and they continue to grow the way, which means they have to grow internally. Every obstacle you encounter, every problem, every chaos you come across, go within. Realize that you might need to probably expand within yourself further, right? And then pay that forward. So when it comes to how I lead, and I want to give you a good example, like an actual example on this, when I go into new companies, right? How I lead is with a space of complete collaboration. I project a space of zero judgment, right? Collaboration, cooperation. There's no competition there, right? From the space I'm projecting. Is all that in the space? Yeah, because it's been there, right? But the space I project does not have it. There's no judgment. So one of my initial talks when I go into a new company or a new department, somewhere people know me, I have a talk on trust. And I walk and say, look, I want everybody to know that I don't know you, you don't know me. I completely trust you. From this moment, you are 100% trustworthy to me. I trust you completely, right? Now, some of you might, have fear around that. You might have done things wrong and stuff like that. That's fine. But I completely trust you. And guess what? I trust that some of you are going to forget I said that. And I trust that I am going to be open enough and empathetic and compassionate enough to remember that you're going to forget that I said that. And when you're afraid to come to me, I'm going to remember that I mentioned that I trust you, and I also forget that you're going to forget, and you're going to be afraid to come to me. And when you come to me with things, I'm going to remind you that I'm completely trusting, and I'm going to be compassionate. I'm going to embrace you when you walk in the door. And I literally go through this whole thing about trust that you watch people, they're like, in their mind, I'm contradicting their definition of trust. Like,
yes.
Right? Because trust doesn't have to do with anybody else but yourself.
That's right.
And when you really break it down, when somebody says, I don't trust them, usually when we break it down, they don't trust their ability to manage. They don't trust their ability to assess. In the past, they've chose the wrong person. They've done the wrong, you know what I mean? So it's being projected forward. So I think trust is a huge thing, but it comes down to that flow that we talked about. That flow is eternal. If you are in any way reactive, if you are not in a state of joy, if you are not enjoying your leadership, not enjoy, but I enjoy, then there's something within you that's off that needs to be looked at, because our primary relationship is always with ourselves, and it always reflects outward to all our other relationships with people, places, and things.
I love it. Everything you just said is going to be documented and hung up on a wall at our Nobody Studios, whatever we have, physical site, because like literally that's the perfect way to explain it. When we talk about speed of trust as being one of our core values. And again, Mark and I just talked about this, and it completely resonates with me, and he used the bank account example. I'm going to trust you, and then I'm going to let you screw that up, right? And it's like a bank account. We give each other, we're going to give each other the complete trust. And you have to, in order to operate the way that we want to, at the, like you said, velocity that we want to. But not everybody is like that. And that's the reality, is that some people, it takes them the while to build that trust, because that's just how they are. And that their speed or their flow to be able to trust somebody in the way that you, I, or Mark can do and just go is different. And so there is that of making sure that the people that join this journey understand that this is how we want to operate. This is what we're asking for everybody to do if they be part of this journey. And it's not going to be for everybody, and that's okay. But I think we need to be really clear about what we mean by that. And I love what you just said. So that's going to be obviously a clip that I want to make sure people hear over and over again. And I also liked how you frame the perspective of looking at trust from the other lens of, it's not the other person, it's your own ability or something. Say that again. What did you say about looking at it from, it's not the other person that you don't trust, but usually when you go deeper into it, it's something about yourself and your ability to manage.
You don't trust your ability. It's based on your past failures, basically, and things that you've done where you didn't trust somebody, which usually had to do, we could even go deeper and say, like, I'm always like, well, what are you accountable for? Were you present? Like, well, no, I really wasn't actually. I was having this problem. I didn't really see it. Like, most people will admit that, oh, wow, okay, it was actually me, that I misread a situation, So it really always comes back to personal responsibility when it comes down to it. And the other piece I really want to put forth there, and I just forgot it, so maybe I don't want to put forth there. Maybe it'll come back when it needs.
It'll come back. It'll come back to you. I do that all the time too. No, and I think, and then the other thing is too. I just want to add, because it is true that trust. Whether you trust someone right away, and then there are times where somebody may not meet your expectations, right? And then it comes down to communication.
Yeah.
When we know that we're all going towards that shared goal, which really every single person I have talked to on this live stream is here for making that goal of building 100 compelling companies that are going to make a massive impact, a positive impact in this world. That's literally why we're all here. We may have different things we're bringing to the journey, and that's important, right? But then it becomes that communication of, if you're not, if you're not able to move as quickly as you'd like to move, and there's something that's preventing you from moving in that direction, right? Then you have to trust each other to be able to have that conversation too, in a positive way, in a constructive way, right? Yeah. To say, okay, how do we keep moving forward? And I think that's something different. Not a lot of people are used to being in an environment where they can actually say that, and not fear judgment. Like you said earlier, you're not going to judge people, right? We don't want people to judge people at the studio. We want to have that sort of, let's embrace each other and give each other an opportunity. So tell us a little bit now, we're almost at time, but I definitely want to talk about some of the exciting or upcoming projects that you're working on, or initiatives at Nobody Studios that you're excited about right now. Tell us a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing. I'm aware of it, and I want to make sure everybody else learns about some of the things that you're doing too.
Yeah, so just because of time, just because I know we're close to time, I'll speak towards Ovations. I am honestly extremely inspired and excited about what the team's been coming together really strong. And this goes to exactly what we were talking about patience and trust. Like, I can see exactly where I wanted the company to go, and I'm eternally patient. Like, I understand that people don't grasp things immediately. And I have this belief that to whom much is given, much is expected. And that goes towards my knowledge of people. So when I understand that not everybody's going to get everything right out of the gate, there's going to be people that are distracted. They're going to have stuff going on. They're not going to hear everything I said. They're going to forget all those things. That equates to me as like, okay, patience. I need to continue to talk to them and continue that line of communication. And it's a responsibility on my end. So with Ovations, one of the things I'm excited about with that is that, and let me give you a little story. I love and am adamant about integrating what I teach. Like, I want people to really grasp it. I love to see people have these moments of satori and aha moments, and I love to see the needle move when they awaken to something they never could have imagined, right? Mm-hmm. Not just reaching their goal, but seeing the false identities and the fears and the doubts fall away to now they have aspirations they never thought they'd have, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I've always done when I do speaking, right, and I go to organizations, is I'll speak and then I stick around. And this goes towards what we're doing with Ovation. So let me share what I'm saying. I would stick around, and they're like, "Oh, you're still here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just want to help." I'm like, "We so appreciate you stayed and talked with everybody and helped answer questions and stuff," which turned into me doing workshops with companies I did keynotes for, which turned into me doing workshops before the keynote and after the keynote, which turned into me 3 months later saying, "Aaron, can you come speak to us on this?" I'm like, "Sure can." And I'd go speak to them again, right? So one of the things that we're building out with Ovations is a product where we can go into organizations and bring in those expert level, thought leaders who have been there, done that, like me and others who've really built companies and paid the dummy tax, and can look at a company and a problem that they're having and say, here's the solution. And also come in on specific topics that are hot topics. I mean, we can talk about AI, we can talk about DEI, we can talk about anything, but literally level up the entire company, right? Mm-hmm. So whereas things have been siloed and segmented where somebody has a problem, I know those problems are going on everywhere because I've gone into one part of a company and ended up talking to every department over the next couple of years on the same problem, right? Mm-hmm. What if we could go in and address it across the board with everybody? So we're building out a product right now where we can bring in these experts into organizations, do some short form talks with them, right? Where it's short to where it's easily understood and there's action steps that can be actioned immediately by the team, right? And we can move that needle. So it's a series of short form talks rather than one long talk, which again, people forget. They only retain about 10 to 20%, depending on, there's a bunch of factors there. But what if we could actually bring that whole 80-20 principle into place, have 10 talks to where we've broken them down. The expert comes in, the entire company's leveled up, they're engaging, they're inspiring, they're thought-provoking, they're creating curiosity, and we're giving action steps that can be taken immediately that move the needle, and then all of a sudden at the end of 8 to 10 weeks, everybody remembers everything we taught them. Mm-hmm. And it's actually integrated across the company. So I know we give away the whole thing right now because we're in a beta mode with right now, but we're finding that my theory of how I have worked with companies across the board and really wanted to integrate everything, not just go in and dazzle and have them forget on Wednesday, you know what I mean? But really move the needle and really serve that company and serve the bottom line and serve the entire team and move them towards thrive where most are in survive. My theory is coming to fruition in a product now, where we'll be able to do this across the board with multiple people, experts, and thought leaders.
I love that. And, you know, I'm a huge fan of, here, I was going to do this real quick. No, I'm a huge fan of ovations. So I think I see huge impact on organizations, and not just organizations, but communities, because if we can get in there and give them, you know, top best practices to help them with whatever issues they're dealing with when they need it, not after the fact, but when they need it. And you're bringing in people, like you said, that have expertise. These are subject matter experts, right? That are going to be helping these organizations. And so I'm a huge fan. So look, I've been doing these live streams for I'm on my 30th or something episode for the culture series, and people will watch this and then they want to know, what can we do? What are some of the needs that Ovations has right now? What are some things we're looking for? Tell us what you need so we can have people, and then tell us how they can get in touch with you if they have something that they can add value to what we're doing at Ovations, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a speaker, and I'll use that term because we're still going to be working with speakers, but we're really working towards more like subject matter experts, which I'm a speaker, but I'm also a subject matter expert, right?
Yeah.
So if you have expertise in a specific field or a specific vertical, like leadership or health and wellness or AI or innovation or whatnot, as well as in a specific, specific field, if you've worked in fintech, if you've worked in the financial industry, and you do those things, reach out to us at hello@ovations.com, and we're definitely expanding the roster and stuff of experts and bringing them on board, as well as if you're companies that have a problem that you want addressed, especially around AI. We're finding AI is a big one where we're going into an organization and leveling up the entire company on AI. So giving the entire company literally an understanding of the foundational aspects of AI is game changing, because now we're bringing time compression to all the conversations that need to happen in human resources. We need some talent management over here. We need you guys to hire some people to do this for us. And then without the understanding of what they're talking about, they're like, well, what are you talking about? And the people going to each department asking for what they need are having to actually be an educator at the same time. But when you have an organization that has an foundational understanding of the terminology and what's going on in AI across the board, it brings a whole lot of time compression and to the team, right? And brings that velocity that we're talking about. All this stuff is the same things we do in the studio with our company. So it's really interesting when people are like, how do you guys do what you do at Nobody Studios? I'm like, this is how we do what we do at Nobody Studios. So let me come in and share with you. So companies, if you guys are having a problem with anything you're curious about AI, or literally any kind of topic you can think of, if it's marketing, if it's sales, we have a team curated and some talks curated, and we'll also bespoke it for you. So reach out again, hello@ovations. You can also reach me at aaron@ovations.com. That might be the wrong thing to say, because when I've done it before, I'm completely inundated.
Blow up his inbox, people. Blow up his inbox. Come on. I mean, I really think that, if you're in HR, get in touch with Aaron, because, this is a topic that I know. I just had a conversation with one of my clients. It's like there is so much that's coming our way when it comes to AI, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to diversity, inclusion, culture, all these. Health and wellness is another great area that we're going to be having some really good speakers. And I'm talking about different speakers, not the ones that keep saying the same talk tracks. These people are bringing a different, fresh perspective to the mix. And so, and I can say that because at Nobody Studios, we've been bringing a lot of the Ovations speakers. And again, I want to say subject matter experts, because they're speakers as well as subject matter experts who really, so for example, if you've been working for 30 years in a certain area, a certain field, you're a thought leader, you're an expert. Maybe you're not a booked speaker, you're not getting hired to do keynotes, but you know this stuff inside out, right? And you know it probably better than more than most people. So those are the kind of people that we are seeing a lot of people joining Ovations. And so, these are the kind of people you want to get in early on and in your entire organization. So thank you, Aaron, for letting us know what we can do to help promote Ovations. I am truly inspired by all of the stuff that you're doing, not only with Ovations, but I'm looking forward to collaborating with you with Nobody Studios and the culture that we're doing there to really tap into your superpower, because I think it's brilliant what you were able to do and in what we're going to be building 100 companies in the next 5 years. There's going to be a lot of chaos and we're going to need a lot of calm and a lot of clarity. So I'm so glad that you're a part of this journey with us. And so thank you for making time for this great conversation today.
Absolutely. It's been a blast.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for our exclusive live stream series. If you've missed any of our prior episodes, you can check them out on our YouTube channel. And then just want to give a shout out. I'm seeing some activity, but for some reason, it's not letting me see the name of the person who put this comment down. And it says, bravo to both of you for such a thoughtful, high quality, multi-dimensional conversation. Thank you. Thank you for chiming in. And I look forward to seeing everybody next time. Thank you, Aaron.
You're very welcome. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.